The Vatican Foundation is hosting an international conference focused on ending poverty and promoting peace. The conference looks at the current state of poverty, especially after the coronavirus pandemic, and the goals of a better world in the future. The meeting also aims to strengthen the commitment to study new models of economic and social development inspired by Catholic social teaching. Joining us now from Rome is Elena Beccalli, full professor of banking at the Faculty of Banking, Finance and Insurance at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Milan. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor. We appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit more about this conference and the themes that were discussed?
Oh, yes, very pleased to do this. Over the last 2 days here in Rome, we had this international conference of the Centesimus Annus Pro Pontifice Foundation, and we had the opportunity to discuss ways to put into action inclusive growth via sustainability and via the erosion of poverty. So we had more than 100 participants from all over the world discussing about inclusive growth. And we had several perspectives being discussed in the conference, the economic one, the geopolitical one, in order to find concrete actions in order to go into a new, different economic and social model.
And as we know, the World Day of the Poor will be commemorated in about a month on November 13th. In his message, the Pope stressed the consequences of the pandemic and also the war in Ukraine. How these major crises, how do you think that they exacerbated poverty around the world?
Well, the global financial crisis first, and then the pandemic, and now the war, they all contribute to increase inequalities, and they all contribute to increase poverty around the world. Especially if we look at inequality, we have an increase of inequality within countries. And what we can say is that because of these continuous crises and shocks and failures, we cannot say that the current economic model is a good model. There are so many crises and failures that we must rethink the current paradigm.
And I understand you were the moderator of a meeting today. Can you tell us some more about that in the discussion?
Yes, we had this discussion in which we understood that public initiatives are very important. They are essential, but they are not enough in themselves. What we need to do is to take into account the role that business and finance can play in addition to the public initiatives. And in fact, we appreciated the idea that we must have companies with different missions and with different identity. Why do I say so? Because all companies have got the same purpose, that is value creation. But the major question is why, for whom? And this is a key point, because the traditional profit-oriented companies has to be put into question, and we must go into new types of companies, such as social businesses, benefit companies, or companies oriented to sustainability. All this calls for economic biodiversity that is essential in order to sustain over time the economic system.
Professor, thank you so much for talking to us today about all of that. We appreciate it. Elena Beccalli, full professor of banking at the Faculty of Banking, Finance and Insurance at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Milan. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure.